Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 or 4 of Free Drop Live. I've sort of lost count. Today I'm absolutely delighted and honored to be joined by a legend of South African golf, a former European #1 SA Open champion, Dale Hayes. Dale, thank you so much for making the time.
No, it's a pleasure. Time is one thing that I've got quite a lot of at the moment.
Yeah, don't we all? Don't we all? How have you been spending the lockdown period?
Well, I'm very fortunate because we actually live at Swartkrop Country Club. We live on the estate, so we've got a golf cart, and we've my son has got a little convenience shop going at the clubhouse.
Oh, okay.
So I pop down there, once a day and have a chat to him and stuff like that. And so I do get around now that we can walk. We obviously are walking on the golf course, and listen, it's been probably 99% better for us, or for me and my family, than it has been for most other people in South Africa. And you've got to obviously just have empathy for a lot of the people that are in shacks and are sharing rooms and aren't able to get out and stuff like that, because it's a nightmare for them.
Yeah, it's not easy at all. I mean, I don't want to take up too much of your time, because as much as we do have a lot of it, I'm sure you're quite busy. So I'm curious, in terms of your golf career, when did you realize that you had something special and you were a pretty good player?
Well, my father was the professional at Swartkrop, so we lived on the golf course. I was born right next to the fourth tee. My eldest brother played for South Africa as an amateur and turned professional. So, golf was in our blood. And I mean, I probably started playing golf when I was, 4.5 years old. And, for me, I always took golf, even from a young age. I mean, golf was a serious thing for me. It wasn't kind of a thing where you ran around and smashed the ball sideways and stuff like that. I mean, even from a young age, it was all about scoring and, trying to play better and trying to improve and stuff. And I think, from the time I was a junior, I mean, I played, a lot of people that live in Cape Town would know Robbie Chapman very well. Dennis Brains, who ran the PGA for years. Now, both Dennis and Robbie Chapman were two of the top junior golfers in South Africa, and they're sort of a little bit older than I was, a year or two older than I was, but they were the guys that I played against, and both of them were terrific. Robbie Chapman was probably the best 10, 11, 12-year-old golfer that South Africa's ever had. I mean, he was fantastic at that age. He was fantastic. And Dennis Brains, when Dennis was sort of 15, 16, he was also a terrific player. In one junior tournament at Swartkrop, at my home course, I shot 138 for 2 rounds, and he beat me. He shot 136, and that was as a 15-year-old. I was 14 and he was 15.
Yeah. So
the golf was terrific, and it was that's how you improve. You improve by playing with people that are better than you. That's how you learn. A lot of people ask about Zimbabwe. Why Zimbabwe produced all those wonderful players? They produced all the wonderful players because there were guys like George Harvey and Teddy Weber, and they were all trying to beat them. And then the pros they had were Simon Hobday and Moose Gammon and one or two others. And they were trying to beat these guys. So, they had something to look forward to, something to strive for. And I think that's very important when you're young.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, you sort of, in a way, you kind of feed off each other. I mean, if you look at the whole Louis and Charles situation, I mean, Louis winning the Open in 2010 and then Charles winning the Masters the next year sort of shows you that once you see your mates do it, you realize that you can too.
Absolutely, and that's a great example, because the two of them also met when they were young junior golfers, and the two of them have fed off each other and improved, alongside each other for up to today. Yeah. And exactly the same happened with Richard and Ernie.
Yes.
Now, Gary Player and Bobby Locke were the exceptions, because both of them were really outstanding, especially Bobby Locke, and just so much better than anybody else in this country. Gary, not so much, because you did have, players like Dennis Hutchinson and Harold Henning and Trevor Wilkes and, a number of other good players, but Gary was clearly the best of the lot. But when, I think Retief and Ernie were kind of, equals, and they fed off each other.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I mean, if we look at your 1969 year, it was absolutely phenomenal from a tournament standpoint. You won the Junior World Under 15 to 17 category, the SA Stroke Play, actually the inaugural one, if I'm not mistaken, and the German and Brazilian amateurs. Can you point to anything that sort of clicked in your game, either a particular department of your game or mentally, that helped you to that success?
A few months before the end of 1968, we played the Northern Transvaal Amateur, and I played seriously well, and I ended up winning it by a mile, by 12 or 13 shots. And I think that's what kind of really was the turning point in terms of amateur, where I realized I was good as pretty much most amateurs in South Africa. And I just turned 16, and there was a fellow in South Africa, a great golfing benefactor. His name was George Bloomberg. Okay. George Bloomberg was responsible for any golfer that you've ever heard of that came along at my time or before me. George Bloomberg was responsible in one way or another for them getting to where they were. And we called him Uncle George. And Uncle George sat down with my mother and had a chat to my mother. And he wanted me to go and play on the amateur circuit in Europe the next year. So we're talking about 1969. And of course, I was still at school. I'd just done standard 9. And my mother wouldn't have it. My mother said, not a chance. We've sent Dale to a private school, and he's going to finish school because, that he finishes, against his matric and everything, golf can come after that. And eventually Uncle George argued with my mother for a good bit of time. And eventually he said to her, listen, Glenn, because that was her name. He said, listen, Glenn. He said, even if Dale stays at school for 10 more years, he's never going to be clever. We know he can play golf, so let him go and play on the European Amateur Tour. And that was it. I went to play on the amateur circuit the next year. From the time I was 16, all I did was play golf. I mean, there was no, I didn't go to school. I didn't bother with that because I was never going to be clever. So I didn't bother with school. And all I did was play golf. So I had a huge advantage. And, I had my father right on the doorstep who taught me to play. I had a golf course right on the doorstep so I could play and practice whenever I wanted to. I mean, it was, it was just very fortunate.
Yeah, I'd imagine that. Let's just see what's. Oh, okay, cool. No, I'd imagine sort of having that, as you say, having Swartkorp so in such close proximity and having that sort of facility at your disposal must have definitely helped you a hell of a lot.
Sorry, Craig, I'm not hearing you at the moment.
No, it's fine. Can you hear me now?
I'm not sure what's happened.
I've
lost you.
Let's actually try and sort this out. Let me just see. Sorry, let me just see if I can. Can you hear me now? So, Dale, Lily is saying that she can hear both of us. Can you not hear a thing? Sorry about this, guys. We are working on it. Hopefully it'll be resolved soon. Sorry, just bear with us. Well, sorry about this. Hopefully Dale will rejoin ASAP. It's quite strange. It's never actually happened before, so bear with us. Cool. Is that
there
a
you
bit
go.
better?
Sorry, I'm not
Epic.
sure what happened there.
No stress at all. Yeah, so that's actually quite interesting that you say that. It's, I suppose it's every mother's nightmare to have their child take that leap of faith, but it certainly worked out. I mean, in 1970, you just continued to go from strength to strength, defending your SA stroke play title, and also winning the Scottish Amateur. Would you say that, given all of your amateur success, you felt added pressure when you did turn pro?
No, not really. You know, it was always in the plan that I was going to turn professional, and you know, I mean, from the time I was a kid, I mean, from the time I was 10 or 11, I mean, I just imagined myself playing on, you know, on the big tour, you know, playing as a professional golfer against Gary Player and all the best players around at that time. So you know, it was just kind of the next step for me. There wasn't a lot of pressure for me. You know, in fact, it's quite funny, but the very last tournament I played as an amateur was at East London Golf Club. It was the Interprovincial. And my very last game I played against Western Province. And I played against Roy Joubert, who beat me like a drum. So I lost the very last game I ever played as an amateur golfer. And then, you know, obviously I turned pro, and yeah, you know, I was very, very lucky, because when I turned pro, the very first tournament I played in South Africa was the Newcastle Open, and I won it. And then when I played the rest of the circuit here, and I played pretty well on the circuit, then went overseas in April, and the very first tournament I played that in overseas was the Spanish Open, and I won that.
What?
So I mean, you know, a dream start. You know, you couldn't actually dream for anything better to happen.
And what does it mean to you to have that Spanish Open record? Because obviously you were the youngest winner in tour history. What did it mean for you to have that, you know, stand until, I think it was 2009?
You know, it's funny because, you know, the only time I kind of even thought about it was when it started to come up on television. You know, when we started watching the European Tour on television, and suddenly, you know, these stats would come up, you know, youngest ever winner, Dale Hayes. And, you know, I hadn't thought about it before that for 20 years. It never entered my head. I mean, yes, you know, I suppose if I hadn't thought about it, I would have thought that I probably did have the record. But there were a couple of records I had that I didn't like either. You know, so, you know, some records are good and some records are bad. I mean, I had the record in the World Match Play Championship that they used to play at Wentworth. And I had the record for getting the biggest beating in the World Match Play. And that record stood for 25 years or something. I got beaten 11-9 by Tom Watson.
So I've sort of been wrestling with whether or not to bring that up, because I don't know how you would feel about it. But
you know, the one thing about golf is this game teaches you to lose. And you know, Jack Nicklaus, who in my opinion is the greatest golfer that's ever lived, Jack Nicklaus lost 92% of the tournaments that he played in. Okay? John McEnroe won 92% of the matches that he played in when he was the best tennis player in the world. Yeah. So, you know, golf is very different. You learn to lose in golf.
Yes.
You know, and so, you know, I you know, fortunately, I won a few as well. So I think it all evens out at the end.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. So, as we've so emphatically established, you clearly weren't overawed at all by the big occasion. And in 1975, I'm sure you realized every tour pro's dream by winning the Order of Merit at I think 23, if I'm not mistaken. Again, what is it like to have that sort of level of success come so early in your career?
I played in 1971 was when I turned professional. I went over and played on the European tour.
Yeah.
And the European tour actually officially started in 1972. So 1971 wasn't actually part of what is today officially the tour. And it's quite interesting because players like Harold Henning, who won a ton of tournaments in Europe, doesn't get credit for any of those tournaments that he won before 1972. Dennis Hutchinson won the French Open. He doesn't get credit for that. It's kind of quite a crazy situation. But anyway, so in 1972, the tour officially started. And in 1972, I had a sort of a reasonable year. I didn't have a great year in 1972. But 1973, I finished. I was kind of expecting to do well because, that's the way things have gone for the last couple of years. And the one thing that was disappointing is I wasn't winning as many as I thought I should be winning. Okay. I was winning tournaments here in South Africa, but I wasn't winning as many in Europe as I thought. I'd won the Spanish Open in 1975, I won the Swiss Open. But, I finished second a huge amount of time. So that was kind of disappointing for me. But, I played consistently, and that's what enabled me to win the Order of Merit. And Seve wasn't there.
It's interesting you bring Seve up because you quite famously beat him by 11 in the French Open. What was it like to compete against him in the early part of his career?
Again, funny enough, our careers crossed paths for the first time at Rondebosch Golf Club in Cape Town. Seve played his first ever tour in South Africa. No, people don't realize that, but the first time he ever played on a tour was right here in South Africa in 1974, the end of 1974. And he came out with his brother Manuel, and Seve couldn't speak English in those days, so Manuel kind of came out as his translator. And Manuel was a good player as well. And I played the last round of the Western Province Open with him at Rondebosch that year. And at the end of the round, we came off the golf course, and Manuel said to me, he said, my brother Seve is a champion, eh? I said, yeah, he's going to be a champion. You couldn't argue. You could see that he was special. He was different. There was something about him that was just different. And you had the same feeling when you saw, for about 4 years later, the first time I saw Nick Faldo play, I had the same feeling. I had the same feeling when I saw Norman. They were just there was something about them that was different. There was something, I don't know what that special quality is, but Jack Nicklaus got it, Gary Player's got it, Tom Watson's got it. Today, obviously, Ernie certainly had it, Retief has got it. So, there's just something that makes them a little bit different. And Seve certainly had that. Seve could not have been nicer to me. Seve was unbelievable to me. I played a lot of golf with him in tournaments, and I never ever had a problem with him. I thought he was wonderful. He had a lovely sense of humor. He was a terrific player. He was kind on the golf course. He was considerate to his fellow players because obviously, we knew that people had come out to watch him play. They didn't care about us. They'd come to watch Seve, especially in the late 70s and into the 80s. So he was very considerate. And I absolutely, for me, it couldn't have been a nicer guy on tour.
It's super refreshing that you say that, because I listen to a lot of podcasts and I've heard recently a lot of stories of guys saying that during Ryder Cups and things like that, he would get into the habit of like coughing on backswings and and things like that at crucial crucial times. So it's
No,
very
no,
cool.
Sevi certainly. Sevi didn't like the Americans.
Hmm.
Okay, and the fact I mean that always didn't like anybody, and Sevi went over to America because Sevi didn't like them when it came to the cup. Sevi, as I say, these guys are different. Sevi would do things to win, and no question, Sevi could have tricks, no question. And one of the tricks, was he would kind of little go like this on a guy's backswing. It was one of his little tricks that he would do. But as I say, he never ever did anything like that with me. He couldn't have been nicer on the golf course than when I played with him.
That's very cool to hear. So it's interesting. I noticed that you were a serial winner of national opens. You won the, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the French, the Italian, the Swiss, the South African, I think even the Colombian in 1980, according to good old Wikipedia. Which of those victories are you the most proud of?
Well, I think winning your own national open is always going to be very special. And when I won it, obviously Gary played and Tony Jackson played and Bob Charles played, a whole bunch of really top players played in it. So that was obviously very special. But that French Open also was very special. To beat Sevi by 11 shots, to beat him by 3 holes. That's what I always used to say. I only beat you by 3 holes, Sevi. I only beat you by 3 holes. And he used to laugh. He thought it was very funny. But I would say probably the South African Open. I mean, if I had to look back, I would have been very unhappy if I hadn't had the South African Open on my CD.
Mm. Who did you beat to that particular title?
Sorry, I missed that.
No, I said, who did you beat to the South African Open title when you won? Dale, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, epic. No, so I said who did you beat? Who did you beat to that South African Open title?
Well, I was in a playoff with John Faree in the end at Houghton Golf Club. And in those days, it was an 18-hole playoff. So the tournament finished on Saturday. You weren't allowed to play on the Sunday. So we had to come back on the Monday and play. And so it took me 5 rounds to win it. But certainly, as I say, that is huge for me. If you ever go to Houghton Golf Club, you'll see there's actually a big photograph of all the winners of the South African Opens that were played at Houghton. And I'm going off the subject here, but the picture was taken, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years ago. So nowhere near when I won the Open. Okay, 20-something, 30-something years afterwards.
Yeah.
You can't believe how many people have come to me and said, Dale, I saw that picture of you at Houghton. You've hardly changed since you won that South African Open. Meanwhile, it's a new picture.
Oh, that's great. I think just as long as you don't tell them that at all, that's great. But I'm curious because I also noticed quite an interesting phenomenon where, in spite of all your success in Europe, from a major standpoint, you only ever played in the Masters and the Open. Can you explain why that is?
Well, when I played the American majors, the only way you could play was to go and pre-qualify for the US Open. The PGA you couldn't pre-qualify for or anything like that. The PGA went strictly on the American money list. So if you didn't play in America, you couldn't get into the PGA. And the American Open or US Open, you had to go and pre-qualify for. So the only one that you really had a chance to play was the Masters. It's interesting because I got invited for the first time after I led the Order of Merit. And then I played, and I missed the cut the first year, but they invited you, gave you a second chance. So they invited me back the next year. The next year I finished in the top, the rule was the top 25, got invited back.
Okay.
So I finished in the top 25, got invited back for the third time. So I played the Masters 3 times. But then in 1978, I finished second in the European Order of Merit, but I never got invited back to the Masters. So, quite interesting. The Masters was strictly by invitation in those days. The Open Championship, obviously, the very first year, 1971, I pre-qualified. I had a pre-qualify.
Okay.
And I played the pre-qualified at a golf course called Hesketh. And I shot 64 in the one round, so I pre-qualified for that. And in fact, I was 6th going into the last round. And shot 2 over par in the last round, and ended up 17th. But that got me into the next one. And then I just kept going. So I never, ever had a pre-qualify for the Open again. So I was always exempt for the Open Championship. So I was very fortunate from that point of view.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty cool tournament to be able to go back to year in and year out. That's very cool. Out of interest, you mentioned that you needed to the PGA was based off the US money list. What are I don't know if you heard about what I want to say Paul Azinger said about Fleetwood not having won in America and yet having won a few times. I think it's 4 or 5 times on quote unquote that tour. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I suppose quite rightly, the Americans believe that their tour is the only tour. And it is the biggest tour in the world. It has the best players in the world. But, I think it was kind of beneath him to belittle the European tour and to belittle it, especially when, they haven't done that well in the Ryder Cup for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So, it was a bit silly for him to say that. And I'm not sure it came out the way he would have liked it to come out. I think he probably came out a bit harsher than he. But, Europe have produced some wonderful players for a very long time. From the days way back when I'm talking about now from the point of view of going to America. Tony Jacklin, Peter Oosterhuis, and from those days then came Faldo, Lyle, Woosnam, Seve, Bernard Langer. Europe have produced a lot of terrific players. And, from those days, they've always had, a few of the best players in the world. Okay? But America, it always has had and probably will have, for a while yet. I firmly believe that we're going to see a big change because of the Asian countries coming through. We've seen so many really good Japanese players, Korean players coming through. And I think that's going to make a difference to the leaderboards big time in the next 10 years.
So it's interesting. I've actually got a question here from Bernard Babis, who says, is it true that Gary Player said you would never make it on the US tour?
That is true. He did. Gary was dead against any of us going to play in America. He kind of, I think, wanted kind of America for himself. I'm not sure what his reasons were, but in my time, he kind of, his advice for all of us was to stay away from America. And the only person who didn't listen to him was Bobby Cole. I stayed away mainly from America. Hugh Mayoki never ever went to America until the Champions Tour. John Bland never went to America. Simon Hobday never went to America. So, we kind of did listen, to what Gary said. But we were also, it was a very time then. And I think this is very important, is because we didn't have television. Yeah. So we never saw how Americans play. Okay, so, in our minds, Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Lee Trevino, those players that were playing really well in my time, were streets ahead of any other players in the world. And the only time we ever got to see them was at the Open Championship. So you said earlier, I was never overawed. When I got to the Open, I usually was, because the Americans were there. So it was different. The Americans had come to the Open Championship. And, I think a lot of that was to do with because Gary kept on pumping how it was to play in America and all that sort of thing. And listen, he was quite right, eh? And it's nothing's changed. I mean, even today, America is the hardest tour in the world to make it in. If you make it in America, you're one of the best golfers in the world, no question about that. Louis, Charles, they've done really well in America. They haven't won maybe as many tournaments as we hoped they'd win, but they've done really well. And it was only really when Nick Price went that whole thing changed. Nick Price changed it. He was the guy who was instrumental in changing it.
That's actually very interesting. That I didn't actually know that about. I didn't know a player had said that. So that's really interesting. But I think, I mean, looking at your record, I think you made 41 starts in the States and had, it was 12 top 25s, which isn't, I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. I think you also had a second place finish somewhere along the line as well.
Yeah, I finished second in the Florida Citrus Open, which today is called the Arnold Palmer Invitational. And I played okay in America, but I didn't play as well as I would have liked to when I played over there. I never felt that I played as well in America as I played in Europe. I played the best golf I ever played was in Europe, no question about that. I played better in Europe than I even played in South Africa.
Yeah. So
I really enjoyed the bad. I enjoyed those sort of things because everybody else was struggling.
Yeah.
So I kind of enjoyed the fact that I could sort of make hay while everybody else was struggling.
It's I think something that I've wanted to know for a while is how did the American crowds respond to you during tournaments?
Yeah, I never had a problem. Gary had some problems with the anti-apartheid people, but I never had any problems when I played in America at all. I had more problems in Europe than I had in America as far as that went. But I never had any problems with crowds, with golfing crowds anywhere. It was the non-golfing people that we had problems with. That was because of the apartheid issues that were prevalent in those days. But I never had any problem with Americans at all, with American crowds at all. I never had any problem with American,
Sorry guys, another crazy lag here. Hopefully it'll catch up soon. Okay, so hopefully we'll get Dale back ASAP. Thank you so much for your patience. Clearly the Wi-Fi connection is leaving something to be desired, but hopefully we'll be back soon. But hope you're enjoying it so far. It's truly an absolute honor to chat to someone who's accomplished all that Dale has in the game. So hopefully we can continue that discussion soon. Sorry for the wait, guys. Thank you so much for your patience. Yeah, we're just trying to figure out what's going on. Sure, I hope you guys are enjoying the well, not so much lockdown anymore, but level 4 lockdown. Yeah, hopefully you're enjoying whatever you're doing at the moment, which I suppose is watching this. So thank you so much for making the time. Let me just see what happens. Just hold on. I don't know if the issue is my side or if it's Dale's. Just bear with me. Yo, technology is not a vibe. Let me see what's going on here. Thanks again for so clearly whatever I tried there didn't work. Okay, so the interesting development, Dale has lost the internet connection completely on his iPad. So let me just chat to him and see what we can organize. It's fine. It's all for the comic relief. Yeah. Sorry, just give me 2 seconds. Actually, so surprised that 9 people are still watching a screen where not much is taking place. I've actually just suggested that he switch over onto data, but yeah, we'll see if he's able to do that, and we can carry on this delightful conversation. So my brother says, tell us a joke. Well, I'm hardly the joke telling type, especially not in the Sturton household. I often feel inferior to Richard and my dad. So yeah, Rich, why don't you actually type a joke and I'll post it, because we know that you're actually the comedian in the family. Anyone that's been to one of your shows knows that you can certainly tell a few good ones. Okay, let's see. So the dude has just read it. Not the dude, sorry, Mr. Hayes. Mr. Hayes has just read it, and now we'll see if switching over onto data works. Sorry. Let's just see what's going on here. Yes, see, the number of people watching has actually increased while we've been having technical issues. That's great. But yeah, as I say, hopefully be resolved again soon. Sorry guys, I feel like a bit of a prawn holding your attention for so long while nothing is taking place. Yeah, but thank you for bearing with us while we try and sort this out. Yeah, at this point, this is turning into a bit of a mini series. You could watch it over. Yeah, you could watch it over a couple of hours. Yeah, so I've actually just got the suggestion from one of my mates to tell anyone that's joined sort of midway through that they should go back and listen from the beginning, which is a great idea. He's actually a mate of mine who's studying medicine, so he's got a bright oak. So thanks, shout out to Christian Kotravos for that piece of that pearl of wisdom. Yeah, so anyone that wants to do that is more than welcome to. Yeah, let's just see. Let's see what happened. What happens? Thanks, Rich. Lots of interesting things being shared indeed. Thoroughly enjoyed it so far. So yeah, let's see what transpires here. Any time now, surely. Shame. I actually feel bad for Dell. I really appreciate the time that he's taken to try and figure this out. Sorry that you had to see me drink a glass of water, but yeah, much appreciated. Okay, so let's actually go through the comments. I'm getting all of these cracking suggestions from my friends. Yeah, at the moment, there's really not much to say, which is unfortunate. But when we do finally establish connection again, yeah, just sort of fire up the questions. You can even start popping them in the comment section now, and then when we do get going again, I will I'll at least have a chance to ask them to him. Yeah, let's see. Hopefully again we can resume play fairly soon. Sorry, just hold on. So it's interesting. I've actually got another suggestion from a friend who says, can I not share highlights of Dale's golf days? So it's actually quite interesting. The first time I got in touch with Dale, let me just actually tell a bit of an anecdote here. But I was actually working at Golf Digest South Africa in 2016. rest in peace. Yeah, I really did enjoy their content. But yeah, so I messaged Dale and I said, "Hi Dale, listen, I'm working for Golf Digest, and it's the French Open this week, and we've had 5 or 6 South African winners of the French Open. So would you mind sending a photo of you perhaps with the trophy?" And he replied, which was very cool of him to reply, but he replied and said, "Yeah, no, unfortunately, cameras weren't a thing when I won, so there's no visual evidence of my victory," which I found quite a laugh, because clearly the man is quite open to poking fun at himself. So I think that for me as a golf fan at the time, like that I found quite endearing and quite a vibe, that he was able to firstly reply to a random intern who was on his like June-July break during first year varsity. So the fact that he that he took the time to reply and actually inject a bit of levity into the situation was great. And I mean, even today, I messaged him and said, so please let me know of any time constraints that you may have, so I know how to structure the interview. And he replied again, in typical Dale Hayes fashion, "No time constraints as long as we finish before the golf course reopens." So that again was quite a lach. But yeah, guys, you are completely forgiven if you've got other things to do with your day, and I'll certainly repost this video once we get back online. It may even be better. Hold on, let me actually see if we could reschedule this for tomorrow, maybe. Sorry. Sorry, I'm sure he's probably, being the hell of a nice oak that he is, he's probably stressing at the moment. So we'll see what he says. I've just suggested. But yeah, I mean, he's such an interesting oak to listen to. I mean, I could listen to him for hours and hours on end. My brother and I have this joke where, we say, I think it's actually, can't remember which commentator it is. One of the regular European tour guys and Sky Sports guys who, Richard once said, "Yeah, the sound of Sundays." Him and good old Derek Watts on Carte Blanche. But Dale is, yeah, I mean, I could listen to that oak, as I say, I could listen to him for hours. So yeah, depending on how much golf you watch on TV, you have to, any tournament and any broadcast that features Dale Hayes is a broadcast that is far better off, and his anecdotes and the stories he tells are always a treat to listen to. I mean, I think he's been in the game for the better part of 50 years. So, he's, in that time, he certainly built up quite a treasure trove of anecdotes and stories. So yeah, definitely check the man out when we start up with professional golf again. Yeah, definitely a vibe, and yeah, also super humble. I mean, and quite, in a way, like also quite self-deprecating when he wants to be, which is also quite a vibe. Very, very cool. Guys, so I think we'll just give it a couple minutes, and then depending on what happens, it may actually be better to just reschedule for tomorrow or something, and we can pick up where we left off. Hopefully the man is still available. sorry, this is actually a bit awkward to do. I'm actually going to phone him and see, because let's try and hurry this along a bit, just so I don't take up too much of your time and his as well. Yes, just bear with me. Never thought I'd see the day, or I never thought the day would come where I'd be phoning a former European number one. So that's, what a world we live in, eh? Crisis. Was it? Odell, I'm just wondering if we should maybe try reschedule for tomorrow or later in the week. Once the Wi-Fi and everything is sorted. Cool. Let me know. Cheers. Bye. Guys, can we just take a few moments to appreciate what a rigmarole leaving a voicemail has become these days? You've got to press like 5 or 6 buttons before your message actually sends. What happened to, just pressing hash and being done with it and being able to get on with your day? It's a bit bizarre. So as you can see, I'm clutching at straws if I'm trying to make light of a voicemail message. It's funny because obviously there's a voicemail light service. Crisis. Sorry guys, hopefully, well, I'm actually not going to say anything because I don't know when this will be sorted. Your eggs are dropping like flies, which I fully understand. Full disclosure, like that's quite all right. I think let's just end I think it's best to end the broadcast here, and then we'll pick it up for part 2 with Dale Hayes, and hopefully in the next day or two, but details to follow. Cheers guys, thank you so much for tuning in though, much appreciated.